Today we're going to talk about mouthpiece pitch, how we use it to improve our saxophone playing, and some methods on how to get started. So, real simply, the best way to start is just to start. When you blow on your mouthpiece, you want to make sure that you hold it correctly. Don't hold it with a big fist because that will change the sound. You want to keep your thumb underneath and one or two fingers on the top. You want to make sure that you are applying some upward force to your mouthpiece to simulate how your head would be resting, and you would have this restless instrument kind of holding it up. Because how you hold it in your mouth can really change the pitch. So the angle that we're holding it at can make it higher or lower, so you really want to be cautious about that. So when you're starting out, just go ahead and blow and see what happens. Sometimes there's a squeak, it's not really stable, that's all fine. At first we don't really want to worry about what kind of pitch we're getting, just that we get a nice stable pitch. So after you've done that, I think another good point to go to is to practice your vowel syllables. So the ones I like to go with are ah, eh, e, o, u. And all you want to do is just sing that syllable and that vowel shape and hold it in your mouth and try and maintain that while you're blowing. So I would do something like this. Ah, eh, e, o, u. So sometimes when people do this, the notes all sound the same, and there's not a real change between them. Usually what's happening is that the vowel shape is not being maintained while you play. As the pressure builds inside our mouth, it changes where the tongue position is, and they're kind of all the same. So you want to really work to hold that shape. There should really be the most difference between your E and your U shape. This would be E, U. Okay, so that's something that you can play around with to try and make a difference on the mouthpiece as far as some of the pitches there, okay? Now, this leads us into what we need to do on the mouthpiece. So I've been working with mouthpiece pitch people for many years, and I've sort of come up with this idea and some of the problems that people have when they're trying to work with the mouthpiece, and I think some of the confusion people have in that there are definitely two distinct ways of doing pitch on the mouthpiece and manipulating pitch on the mouthpiece. And that is one, using our jaw and the lip, and two, with using voicing. Okay, and oftentimes we mix these two things up and it can give us some results that maybe we're not looking for. So first, starting with this is probably pretty easy to understand. This is sort of when people say to drop your jaw or relax your lips or relax your embouchure, this is what they're talking about. So in this model, I'm going to just be opening my jaw to make the space between my teeth bigger, and that's going to lower the pitch. This is what we do when we play with vibrato. If we're really trying to lip a note down for whatever reason, we might need to do that. The other method is using voicing. Now, the vowel exercise that we just did is very similar to doing voicing, where we're thinking, and you might practice that E to the oo, E-oo, to kind of get that feel of moving the pitch up and down, not with your jaw, but with our tongue position, our throat position, that pharyngeal cavity, that we're moving structures in the back part of our mouth to manipulate the sound. Now, in order to really master the saxophone, we have to master both of these techniques. First, we're going to be focusing on the jaw-lip style because that's going to help us the most with our tone, our overall pitch and vibrato, okay? And then when we're done with that, we'll talk about voicing. So my method for really dialing in this is to first start on your highest note possible on the mouthpiece, okay? On the alto sax mouthpiece, that's usually a concert C, okay? So we want to establish that pitch first. Now, a lot of people, when they try and get that C, they're not quite making it. They're more at a B. What you'll discover is that if you're only biting with your mouth, the reed will seal up on you before you achieve that very highest pitch like this. And there won't be any air going through your mouthpiece. Okay, so obviously you need to relax the jaw a little bit to allow some sound to happen, but it's still not going to be quite high enough for you. That's where the throat comes in. You want to get that tongue position as high as you possibly can, and what this is doing, it's establishing your voicing for you, so you know you're not too low. A lot of times people struggle with their mouthpiece pitch because their starting position, they've gotten used to a very open throat because people over the years have told them to open their throat, play with hot air, be big, and so they're very open, and then they struggle with the mouthpiece pitch because they're fighting this extremely low voicing. So what's helpful is to start at your highest possible point first so you know everything else is below there. It's not that we're trying to play at this very high level all the time. It's something that helps us establish the pitch. Okay, so I'm going to play the C. Okay, and I'm going to really stretch up there trying to get my voice. If you're still having a hard time, for your throat position, you want to sing a note. It's more or less the feeling of when you sing a note that's about a fifth to an octave above your normal speaking voice. So if I'm sort of here, I might try and stretch it extra high, as opposed to being lower. Okay, so let's say that you've got the C now. Now you're ready to get notes lower. And we're going to try and get at least a full octave below this C. Really, you can go lower, at least down to an A or an A flat. But we're going to, just for now, try and get the C. If you can get lower than that, that's just bonus. So what we're going to be doing is just moving the jaw. And you want to make sure that the jaw is just moving underneath the reed and that the mouthpiece isn't moving with your lower jaw. So just like I said in the beginning, you've got to hold your mouthpiece up so your jaw can move underneath the reed. So we always want to start by using the piano to establish the pitch. Now, it might be a struggle for some just to get that half step, but you want to keep working at it. If you can only get a tiny bit lower, not quite a half step, then that's how far you get. And if you are struggling, just go ahead and turn that slightly lower position into a long tone. Just try and stretch it and stretch it and stretch it lower, okay? Eventually, I like to do a little expanding interval exercise. Okay? Until we get down to the full octave, and that should sound like this. And like I said, we can go a little bit lower. Okay, but it is a bit of a stretch. Some people like to go from an A to an A. I like to go from C to C. I think it's a little bit easier it helps us get a little bit higher, which in my experience, people need help getting the throat position a little bit higher. But either way works well. The main point is to gain flexibility with your jaw and your lip to control the reed. You've got to keep the reed vibrating by keeping those corners in as your mouth expands down. If your embouchure is too flat, then you'll get squeaks. Things don't really work for you. Also, the air. You need a tremendous amount of air as the pitch goes down, okay? Now, once you're able to do that flexibility, at least getting a third or a fifth, then we're ready to dial in a specific note. So that note for the alto sax is an A, okay? And that seems to work really well for the traditional classical saxophone tone, okay? So some of the things to watch out for when you're doing your mouthpiece pitch is to not scoop up into the note. We really just want to hit it straight on. Okay? And you want to really work on that so you're establishing and you're really setting everything where it needs to be and then blowing over that to create the pitch that you want to. Once you've learned how to play the A, then we can start to do different things like a decrescendo. So our goal is to change the volume without changing the pitch. So the thing we're trying to avoid is this. Okay, that's the sound of your note going sharp. So you really want to hold that jaw position still and use other structures in your mouth and your embouchure to focus the airstream down. Another thing is to work on your tonguing. So a lot of times when we tongue, because people use too much of their tongue, it changes the pitch. That would sound like this. It's sort of all over the place, and we want to work to use a very minimal amount of time. Okay, so the mouthpiece pitch helps us do many things. It's sort of like the naked saxophone. You're really hearing the truth of how you use your embouchure and your throat, what's going on with your tongue and your air in a very unfiltered way. Okay? Once that's very comfortable and you're really getting that A and you're able to move your jaw up and down, then you should start to think about working on your voicing. So we go back to our high C again, okay? So this time we're going to use voicing, and we're going to start back at our high C. And we're going to leave the jaw still, and we're just going to use our throat and tongue position to change the notes. Okay? So it's a completely alternate method. I'm really not moving my jaw at all. I'm just using my throat. And that's going to help me to dial in pitch at a much finer level, to start working on getting overtones. All kinds of good things can come out of studying voicing. But those are two separate ways. Now we can mix those together and move our jaw and voicing at the same time too and achieve even a greater effect. We can maybe even play a couple little songs. that's a lot of fun to do. On the different saxophones, you know, the specific pitch you get will color the type of tone you have. So the general guides when you talk to saxophonists are that the alto is an A, the soprano sax is a C, the tenor sax is a G, and the baritone sax is a concert D. Now, for me, I find that to be a little bit high. So I like to play a B on the soprano sax, and I find that to be a little bit high for the tenor, so I like to play an F sharp, okay? And to be honest, at times on the alto, sometimes A can be a little bit big, and you might want to play a little bit higher. So it really depends. I mean, these are just guidelines, they're starting points. If you're super far off from these and you're having problems either with sharpness or flatness, it's something to help keep you on track. It's not necessarily that, you know, one of these is the be-all end-all of how you play saxophone, but they're just guidelines. And depending on what kind of sound you want to get, if you want a little bit of a bigger sound, a more jazzy sound, you're probably going to be a lower pitch, okay? This also goes when you have a jazz mouthpiece or you want to play in a jazz style. Those mouthpiece pitches are generally lower, and the more open you are, the bigger tone, the more sound you're going to have. It's going to be louder, and it's going to be a little bit more jazzy. That's an overview of mouthpiece pitch, how we use it, 2 methods to implement that into your playing, the other pitches you would use on the other saxophones, and make sure you practice that every day, about 10 minutes, and you will see a big improvement in your playing. Thank you very much.